Hello, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed, and we are reading... Where is it? The Phaedo. And in particular, we are trying to understand what happens when we die. We have a soul in a body, and we've been learning about that. Not just trusting, but understanding. That's important. And understanding how to understand, so we can understand understanding, therefore use it artfully. How do we think? How do we structure our thought? How do we talk with ourselves, the other parts of our soul, and our friends? Socrates has been helping us to learn all this, and he's been demonstrating it. And he has been, as any good teacher does, giving us tools, giving us opportunities to apply our learning ourselves. So, for instance, one of the last arguments that he was following, my headphones are all tangled, was whether or not the soul is immortal. He went through it, but he said we also have to see that it's indestructible. Didn't really. Kind of CB's bailed out at the level of trust. So we've got something to do there. Equally so, he is describing what happens when we die. Some of it will be literal explanations, some of it will be metaphors, some of it will be puzzles, some of it will be purposefully left out for us to have to discover the questions ourselves. And then, if it's a well-written text, the answers should be contained within the text itself. And that's what we've been doing as well, learning how to read, learning how to discover questions and solve puzzles in the text. And this is itself a yoga. Why? Because learning to read without interpretation, without adding our own opinions or prejudices or projections, or leaving out what is there, that's reading without interpretation, requiring us to step away from or purify ourselves from our false beliefs. What prevents us from seeing the way that things are? So it's an activity. It's not something we've learned, but like normally we learn in school, but it's something we can learn. And that's our, yes, you can read. That's our task here. Because that brings our mind up to the level of the mind of the author. And if Socrates is somebody who has the art of the logos, has nous, has phronesis, has completed his work here, has perhaps escaped or left the cycles of reincarnation, has met the better friends and gods and travelers in a high dimension, then that's where we are raising our minds to if we read in this kind of a way. And of course, another way of talking about that is to see things the way they really are. And that's what we're doing in the text, to see the earth the way it really is, which requires us to see not just through our physical senses, but also through the other sense that we have, sometimes called the third eye, the eye of the soul. Or the name for it in Greek is ousia, the capability we have to turn the mind around and know the mind. So, interestingly enough, that also is of the same nature as the realm of being. So lots of puzzles there for us to ponder, contemplate on, and focus on. So in the text, we have been reading about the different rivers that lead into marshlands, and then a couple of them flow on further. Okay, we have the one that goes all the way around, Oceanus, which means ocean, or the principle of ocean. We have Arcus, the Arcusian marshlands. So this Arcus leads to the Arcusian marshlands, and that's where most souls go for greater or shorter lengths of time before reincarnating. And of course, we've been learning about what sort of reincarnation we have based on how we've lived, whether we come back as a kitty, or a goat, or a donkey. A donkey with a cold, that one. So, there of course are two other rivers that sound a lot less pleasant. The let's see if I can remember this. Periwinkle, fledgling, Ethan Hawke. Periflegitheon. Periflegilon.
That's one for the blooper reel.
Periflegithon river with the boiling water and mud that goes past. We wave to the people at the Aracusian marshlands, and it goes down to Tartarus. There's the other one going in the other direction, circling around the river Styx, which comes from the Stygian marshlands. Well, the river Styx leads into the Stygian marshlands, and then the river that leads from that down to Tartarus is Cocytus. And he's saying, well, this is the sorts of things that, based on how we've lived, depends on which place we go to, which river we follow. And of course, we have a daemon assigned to us through our lives, guiding us, and then guiding us along to this place. And he said last time that a murder, you go down Cocytus, or patricide and matricide, killing our father, patricide, and soiling your mattress is matricide. Of course, that's just a joke. Killing your father and mother, of course, we stay in Tartarus apparently for some time where we're purified. And of course, there are the Archeon marshlands is where we're purified and given honors for our good deeds. And after spending some time in Tartarus, we can beseech those in the Arceusian marshlands, the ones that we've wronged, and say, hey, can we join the cycles of death and rebirth again? And if we can persuade them and they say, okay, fine, our suffering comes to an end. So there's some sort of suffering that happens in Tartarus. So we want to do our best to avoid that. And also best to learn how to persuade, which is the art of the logos. In fact, the art of the logos might mean we can avoid all this altogether. If this is a back and forth that we go through until we figure out what is actually good and can put it into our soul, because the things that are not good, the mistakes that we make, and the way that we put it into our soul causes us to go to either the Arceutian wetlands or through Periflegithon or Cocytus to, at the bottom, Tartarus. It's all based on how we've lived, and everything we do is based on what we think is good and our nurturing and habit, putting it into our soul. The only thing is, all too few people have asked the question, what is the good? And acted in a different way other than their habits to put in new habits. Purifying ourselves from what we thought was true, real, good, clear, self, beautiful, just. That's part of the art of the logos, purifying our ignorance, what we think is true but isn't, but also perfecting ourselves to actually use that freedom from our problems to find the truth. That's our perfection. The ladder up and the shadow that it casts. So if that is what we need to understand and know the good, and what we can use as a paradigm or model to guide our new habits, that's our nurture, then that's what we're here for. So it seems like, rationally speaking, Socrates is saying, I'm going to leave behind not a bee sting, but the best thing, the art of the logos, what you need, what all of us needs, even if it takes us 2,500 years to listen to his words because of the chaotic forces of history, well, not chaotic, the understandable, but yeah, I guess sometimes unjust. On the surface, at least, looking from the whole, we can maybe understand why there was such a big and long-lasting counterattack to what we're reading now, and why it's taken so long for this to come to light. But nevertheless, it's come to light now, and we can pick up what Socrates is laying down for us. The art of the logos. And understanding what happens when we die from Socrates' understanding and experience of it, perhaps many, many times, if what he's saying is true. That's philosophy is the art and practice of dying and being dead, so he has to go there. Lots, and he's encouraging us to follow him as quickly as possible. Then we're going to come back and forth until we actually complete our work or figure out the true nature of the good and practice it into our soul, nurture it into our soul. We call that paideia, our education, and our nurture, or the art of the logos and the virtues. Interestingly enough, you could say, well, what makes the virtues and not vices is that you desire, with your desiring part of the soul, you outwardly move towards, and you use in your thinking and reasoning the art of the logos. So temperance, courage, wisdom, towards seeking or using the art of the logos. So we have a way of unifying or harmonizing both our education and our nurture, the two things Socrates says we take with us, the only two things we take with us after our lives here. So, good to know what's going to happen, but also good to puzzle about it so we can figure out what we should do. In other words, oh, this is what happens to us, so what? Well, so play the game. So in other words, if you're playing a game, oh, this is what happens when your character dies. You go back to the start and start again, have to do the work of having forgotten, getting a new problem from your family, culture, religion, and time of birth, based on the historical level of evolution of humanity that you happen to be born into, based on your families, based on the nurturing of your soul previously. In other words, you will forget and you will get a problem. So you have to do the work of purifying yourself of the problem which takes a lot of work and discipline and virtue to discover. And you have to do the work of remembering, learning your paideia, your purification, and your perfection. And who knows what sorts of punishments and rewards you might get in the afterlife, going back and forth. So in other words, if you are here, if you are lucky enough to be born in this time, again, it's only in the last 5 years where we could be playing this game, which is fascinating. If you happen to be born in this time, you happen to be, maybe it's because of your good work in this life or in previous lives, whatever is the case, you have come across Socrates' words and presented in a way where it's readable, with translations that aren't beholden to political or religious authorities. It can be actually read with the actual Greek, and in a time where we have the internet. That's only been around for what, 20 years? Or even less in the way that it is right now, so that we can look up the actual Greek words ourselves without having to be a master of ancient Greek. That's a huge, what's the word? gatekeeping. No, not gatekeeping. A huge barrier of entry. How many people study ancient Greek? You don't have to now. We have the lexicon. We have Wiktionary. We have the ancient Greek dictionaries. And by the way, we are learning Greek as we go. An added bonus. So, only now do we have access to being able to read the ancient Greek. Only now do we have a translation that shows the ancient Greek and has the English translation that keeps the ancient Greek terms when they're necessary, or gives us a lovely highlighted color and capital letter when it is a key text, a key word that the text might hinge upon that is worth understanding the actual Greek meaning. In other words, maybe we've been coming back and forth until this moment. In the chat, so to be a philosopher, you must be what you are, yes, and what shaped you, and the opposite, and recollected what you already are. Absolutely. So we are really discovering what we really are and being it. And whether we like it or not, our soul is shaped by our actions, maybe in this life and in the next, what we experienced. And cucumber juice is great. Add sugar and it becomes watermelon sweet. Okay, that's something we can also do. So, we are here. We are here in a time where we have the text. We are here in which has only been around for 5 years. Literally, we looked at the other texts and the translations have been wrong. Sometimes right, but usually in the key parts they've been wrong. The word phronesis translated as wisdom. No. That's literally, you're missing the whole point. The word knowledge confused with wisdom, or logos not even translated, ousia not even translated. All of the key words. We have them, so good for us. Clap. And we have the Greek. We have this amazing internet where we can read together. So, hey, maybe there are only a handful of us who have a soul that are open and ready to figure out the meaning of life and have fun playing the real game, the true hero's quest, not be distracted by side quests that come up in life. Find fellow adventurers and guides. I have to pause for 1 second. All right, I'm back. Window is closed. So, this is important that we're reflecting on why we are here, because it is understandable. Our path to where we are is understandable, just as our path from the afterlife to here and back and to the other place is understandable. That's what we're reading about. Our cycles of reincarnation is understandable. Equally so, why we are following the river that we're following. In our reincarnation, Socrates is outlining for us. He's making it understandable. So it's one level to understand, okay, this is what's going to happen. And so if I find myself flowing along the river Cocytus or flowing to the Arcusian wetlands, I can understand why, and I can sort of have an idea of where I'm going and why I'm here, and maybe even what I could do. But more importantly, right now, you are where you are because of the consequences of your journeys back and forth through multiple lifetimes. So we're saying, well, this is good to know, for the future when you are wherever you are, but even in the future, you will be there. It's needed for where you are now, whether you happen to find yourself in the Arcusian wetlands, or if you happen to find yourself right here, right now, watching this video, this podcast, playing along, reading the Phaedo, because we've been saying this the whole way through, funnily enough, coincidentally enough, we are on the hero's journey. Not an adjective version, not a particular, but the actual one, the archetype or the ideal or the self hero's journey. That which is copied in media, movies, film, video games. Our true quest. Our quest to know thyself by mastering the art of the logos. Going beyond the back and forth of ignorance. In this life, in our dreams, and in between this life and the next life. So we are in the journey. So thinking, it's good to know about what's going to happen in the next life. Well, what about this life? Because this is where it really pays off. This is where you can do something about it. Because what happens in the next life, as we are reading, is based on what we do here. So really, the real reason we're reading it is to know what we can do here. Because whatever river we flow into, whatever marshland or Tartarus we end up in, is going to be based on what we do here. Equally so, where we are here is based on our past. And more importantly, where we are going. Our future will be based on what we do right now. And because of all of these forces, and what we've done in the past, we are here where we have, funnily enough, been given the opportunity by Socrates himself to learn this art of the logos. So therefore, we can conclude this is our meaning, this is our purpose, this is our higher cause, to master the art of the logos for however long we have here, so we can go to a better place than where most souls go. And maybe share it with our friends and maybe have fun. So there's a journey after the world, after this life, but there's a journey in this life. That's the journey we're on right now. The journey of the true hero, the journey of the philosopher to master the art of the logos. Fascinating. So these are the three questions that would make one rational. Where did we come from? We're learning that now. We are the byproduct of many lifetimes, what happened as a result in the other world, but also beginning our incarnation as a human being, we get a problem we have to purify, the influences of our family, culture, religion, society, and time. So this is where we come from. Where are we going? That's what we're learning about. How can we get out of this back and forth of problems and suffering and rewards and punishments and going around in a circle? Much like these rivers that are said to go around in a circle and spiral up or come back out, up and down. Tartarus seemed to be a back and forth. He called it like breathing. How do we get out of that? What do we call that? Mouse wheel? What's those mouse wheels that a mice runs in but doesn't go anywhere? What's that called? Mouse wheel. How do we get out of that mouse wheel and go to a better place? To continue our journey, move forward. So that's the future. And so what are the three questions? Hamster wheel. How do we get out of the hamster wheel? Where do we come from? Where are we going? And finally, what do we do while we're here? This is the art of the logos. And that's another level of why we're reading this. If the art of the logos requires not just an understanding of where our soul comes from, where it's going, but also a paradigm of the health or excellence of that which our art involves. So the doctor has to know what causes illness, what their patient will do in the future, but also the paradigm. What is a healthy body? All of this we are looking for in what we're reading here, the description of the true earth. Okay, where we're going, where we came from, and can we see the model or the paradigm of the soul in the parts of the soul? So in the same way the different souls in the afterlife have to be harmonized by going through this, so too can we use that a paradigm to harmonize the aspects within our individual souls. Because that's how that's the virtues. That's one of the definitions of the virtues that Socrates gave us. It's a kind of harmony. So how do we apply this to ourselves? Using the whole thing as the paradigm. So, with all that in mind, let's jump in and read. Okay. So, where we left off was, this continues without stopping until they have persuaded those they have wronged. So these are the people, patricide, matricide, or murder, going from periphlogethon or cocytus. Then they come up to the Aracusian wetlands where most people are, and they beseech them to please allow them to step out into that wetland and accept them. If they do so, the suffering comes to an end. So that must be a suffering involved in those rivers going from Cocytus and Periphyligian down to Tartarus and back. This continues without stopping until they have persuaded those they've wronged. For self-judgment is the judgment which the judges impose on selves. Of course, levels of reading. This is the judgment which the judges impose on souls. Self is the judgment which the judges impose on selves. So maybe our self decides this. Maybe we're convincing ourselves. Maybe all this is happening within the self. Puzzles. Those, on the other hand, who shall truly be seen to have lived in a supremely pious way, these very ones are given freedom and are liberated. On the one hand, from the inner regions of the earth, as if from prisons, and on the other hand, arriving above at the pure habitation, they made their home upon the earth. Then, those who have purified selves sufficiently by philosophy. Okay. So, freedom. We want freedom and liberation from the inner regions of the earth. Okay, so this sounds like all of these things are happening within the earth, as if from prisons, and then arriving above at the pure habitation. So these rivers and marshlands are happening within the earth. They make their home upon the earth. So this is where we want to go. We want to go out of this back and forth to these rivers and marshlands within the earth to make our home upon the pure earth. Those who have purified selves sufficiently by philosophy. That's what we've been after. And from that time hence will live altogether without a body. Okay, so it sounds like we've escaped the cycles of incarnation into physical bodies once we have made our home upon the earth. Interesting. So this is where we're headed. This is where we want to go. We want to live in the good place. So he's giving us a goal. So how do we get a nice home in the nice area of town upon the earth, not within the inner regions, not in the slums? purify ourselves sufficiently. Here is that word. So there's lots of keywords in this sentence here. We've got sufficiently, a word that comes up at the end of the dialectics, except for those who are not doing the dialectics properly, like Cebes, who just left at trust, and Socrates says, no, don't just stay at trust. What about you, Simius? You're gonna tag in? Cebes is happy to go along with what people think, go along with the crowd, stay at the level of trust. Boo. Don't do that. Go until it's been sufficient. In fact, let's look for the word sufficient, because this is one part of reading. We tie it in together with other sections of the text which use the keyword. We talked about that's similar to doing dream analysis. Repetition of themes, weaving them together. SUFFEC. Whoop. I see. So last time we saw it here, top of page 85. So there, here's what we're talking about. CB is saying, I'm at a level of trust. I don't distrust what you're saying about the soul being indestructible. And also, every human being, lots of human beings. The ones in, where do most human beings go? Arakazine wetlands. They're still not learning the logos. They're not learning purifying souls through philosophy, the art of the logos. They're still stuck in that hamster wheel. Rats and mice love the hamster wheel. It's like drugs to them. So, trust. Agreeing with the many. Socrates says, come on. Can you do better? Can you tag in? Simius tags in. Says, I have a low valuation of human frailty. I don't really care. I've seen how dumb humans can be. I'm not happy to just trust what they all agree with. So Socrates says, therefore, we need clearer examination. So this has been our theme right at the beginning. So we're on 85. Let's go all the way back to the start. It starts off right at the start, which is important. Can you... Where is it? Tell us all the details as clearly as possible. Every detail, exactly as you can. So this level of accuracy with our reflection and understanding is necessary from the beginning. And now we've been wondering, well, how do we do that? How do we understand? How do we understand most accurately and clearly and precisely? That's been the dialectic. That's what we've been learning. And what's interesting about the dialectic is at the end of the dialectic, we conclude whether or not it has been sufficient, whether or not it has completed its purpose. Okay. So we were on 85. Here we go. So this word sufficient. Clearer examination, what we're learning. If it's to be trustworthy, this dialectic part of dianoia, key part of dianoia, is what we need to make things trustworthy. We go from trust to dianoia, and then dianoia to nous. Trust to super understanding, capital U understanding, understanding to capital K knowledge. Right? We don't lose trust, but we have better reasons to trust now. So for us to be trustworthy, by the way, is there a pattern? Trust, to dianoia, dianoia to nous, love of learning to philosophy, philosophy to phronesis, philomathesis to philosophia, philosophia to philophronesis. Anyway, interesting pattern that comes coming to light now, or maybe you've already seen it. So, clearer examination, we have to thoroughly discuss selves. That sounds like the dialectic. In a sufficient way, that sounds like the end of the dialectic. If you follow the logos as far as humans are able, so this is what, do this as far as you can as a human, that sounds like our completing our task through philosophy. If the self becomes clear, you will seek no further. So this is putting a nice ribbon on it. There is a end, there is a purpose, there is a completion of our work here. So this is sufficient. So where we are reading now, those who have purified themselves sufficiently. So the word sufficiently has been coming up in these key times, usually at the culmination of a dialectic. Individually, when Socrates is doing it, or with his friends, with his fellow travelers. Like he's saying, Hermes and Ionius. Hermes and his sidekick. Doesn't matter who is which. He said we're together. Heroes, true heroes, right? So, sufficiently. That word has so much weight for us now because of the Phaedo. We can see, just like if you level up a character, a barbarian passes a tree, it's just a tree. A thief class who is skilled at noticing traps might notice the trap in the tree. So too, so maybe traps are negative. Someone with the herbology skill leveled up might notice what seems to be just a flower as, I don't know, something that can give you magical powers. So too, we are seeing the word sufficiently in a magical way because of what we have been doing in our reading. So good for us. Purified, again, key word. It's what we've been doing. Philosophy is a purification. And here, by philosophy. That's another one of our puzzles. What the heck is philosophy and how do we do it? Because it seems that in our world right now, everything that is called philosophy seems to be exactly what Socrates is saying philosophy ain't. It's inside B, which is puzzling. What do you mean in chat? It's puzzling. I mean, if you're ever a filmmaker, it might be interesting to, if there's a filmmaker watching or some sort of artist who creates narratives like that, or documentarians, point out where where did we lose them up? Where did we go from philosophy that Socrates is outlining here to the exact opposite? How did we get here? Hey, no wonder Socrates and Simmias ain't happy with going along with what many people think, because what many people think about philosophy is the opposite. I mean, even in Socrates' time, why is this guy in jail? He's doing the best. So, purified ourselves by philosophy. So again, this word has a lot of weight for us now. It's not just opinion, it's the opposite. Beyond opinion. It's not just learning. It requires that jump into the second search for causes that even Anaxagoras couldn't do. Level of mind or being. And philosophy ain't even the goal. It culminates in a real love of phronesis. It's not about anti-logos or shutting people down in arguments. So, very different than what we think it is, but important. So good for us. Our seeing is improving. We've purified ourselves sufficiently by philosophy, and from that time hence, we will live together without a body. So there is a payoff. There is an end of the game. Well, not an end. There is a leveling up. Different dimensions. This is important. When we learn and we level up, when we find ourselves free of a certain problem, it's like we're in a new world. We've changed. We see things differently. The game has changed a little bit. Interesting. I wonder, as a musician, if this is represented with octaves. The music theory is within an octave, but then you can go to a new octave. Maybe you have an art when you can see, oh, there are different levels here. At any rate, the ideal or the paradigm upon which these things are based, here. We are in the pure habitation. We've got a home there. We're removed from the prison, as if from prisons. This is interesting because we are separating from the soul as if from chains. Now the metaphor is upgraded itself. Here's another upgrade. Not separating from the soul as if, not separating the soul from the body as if from chains. We are separating the soul from any kind of body and the parts of the other world, even as a soul. So we're separating from the inner regions of the earth as if from prisons. So from dropping our chains to dropping prisons. From that time forth, we will live altogether without a body. That's great. Let's hope. So it sounds like having a body is for a reason. To somehow create the conditions for our ability to master the art of the Logos. Practice it through virtue, through time. And discover what's phronesis and the Logos, the art of the Logos needed to reach phronesis and maintain it. A certain state of the self that is connected to being and is therefore doesn't lose its power. And isn't something we leave behind in the physical world. They arrive at even more beautiful habitations. Wow.
Wow.
Which is neither easy to describe clearly, nor do we now have sufficient time to do so. Okay. Boo. So I wonder if this is the second journey from where Socrates is saying, meet fellow travelers and guides. So make your home on the true earth. So get out from the underworld, going back and forth in physical reincarnation. You're without a body now, but is there more beautiful habitations that you can? Is that in this place or is that where they're going? I'm not sure. Could be either. Both kind of fit, so we can take both. Take it with us to see what pans out. But truly, O Simius, for the sake of these matters, which we have necessarily gone through in detail, make every effort so as to participate of excellence. Wow, that's interesting.
Wow. Wow.
I don't think we've seen excellence before. Participate of excellence. This was our kind of, to pull up the board. Yeah. Fix the board. So, one of the earliest things we said was, we've been figuring out is, what does it mean to be a philosopher? And we drew a picture of our little guy here. That's us.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So what we've been figuring out, how to read or how to do philosophy, how to, as we can say now, purify our soul through philosophy. This is what we've been figuring out, and we've been drawing pictures of it, well, around this fellow to figure out what it means to be on the true hero's quest. So in the chat here, talking about anxiety, which is kind of fear. And right at the beginning, we've been talking about escaping from pleasure, pain, fears, and desire. And Socrates met his end fearlessly and nobly. Page 3. He was with divine providence, but he was not had sorrow or pleasure because they were engaged in philosophy. It was as if both pleasure and pain and the future expression of that, fear and desire, blended together. No pity. Engaged in philosophy as we have been accustomed to do. So there's the philosophy, that's our work, how we purify our souls so we can find the good habitation on the surface of the true earth, and accustomed. This is one of the puzzles. And this is tied to the virtue of courage too. So hey, maybe if we stay doing philosophy, that might have an effect on our pleasures and pains, fears and desires. I mean, doing philosophy or seeking or doing the art of the logos seems to be what makes the virtues virtues. So it could be a way of harmonizing our desires, our outward moving, which is often tied to pleasures, pains, fears and desires, and our reasoning. Well, what are we thinking about? What are we desiring? What are we seeking? Philosophy, the art of the logos. Anyway, Phaedo is saying that what it was like for him to be doing philosophy, even at what would be a sad or scary time, the death of the great Socrates. Right, so it can be recognizing the states of mind that come up to distract us from our purpose, mastering the art of philosophy. Can be a clue as to a false belief about self and reality that we're holding on to. So it can be a gift. If, like same with dreams are a gift if we unpack it with the art of the logos. Otherwise, we'll dismiss it, we'll lose what's there. Just as this text is the greatest gift, so long as we use it to master the art of the logos, if we unpack it through the dialectic and the art of the logos ourselves. Otherwise, it's a missed gift. So the same with our states of mind, the same with our dreams, the same for our texts, and maybe even the same with our life. This life may be a gift, provided we use it to master the art of the logos, and we unpack it through the dialectic and the art of the logos. Otherwise, we're going to be missing the messages. And then we have, all sorts of punishments, or I'm not sure if it's punishments, but we have negative experiences. He talks about we fearfully flutter around the body and the physical place, both in this life and coming back and forth from our reincarnations, struggling much, suffering much. The daemon has to use force to lead us away. This was the opening, only a couple of pages back, the opening of this description of the incarnation. So we want to get out of that, and maybe the art of listening to the daemon. And if the daemon is to guide us to master the art of the logos, this might be how we unpack dreams, the text, and our lives for the art of the logos. Unpack it using the art of the logos to discover and master the art of the logos. Right, to become rational about all of these things. Your life, your feelings, your dreams, incarnation. So, our picture, we were saying, hey, how do we become a philosopher? Well, we seek the key terms in the text, particularly sulfur terms, self-beauty, self-justice. As Socrates says, what we were talking about a few moments ago, don't just trust what many people think. You have to sufficiently examine the selves that we have been investigating. Self-beauty, self-justice, the self-earth as we're doing right now. Look for patterns and orders. Look for triads as we're doing. Look for, hey, we've seen 4 rivers. Is that interesting? And there's one above them. Is that a pattern we can see? We've been seeing the patterns of the dialectic in the art of the logos, needed to unpack. Dreams, our lives, the text. Self-reflection, ousia. Looking for questions. Learning the dialectic. Creating hypotheses. Mythologizing your dialectics, your questions, your hypotheses. But at the top, you can't be in this game unless you are seeking excellence. This was our hypothesis we've been carrying all the way since the start. Otherwise, you'll be content in a less than ideal goal. Or you'll reach something and you won't maintain it. We want to do whatever we do with the highest or loftiest vision and understanding that we have. This is what Socrates described as how to think. Create a hypothesis using your loftiest. Seek excellence. So, equally so, in what we're reading here in the text, Socrates is bringing this idea of participating in excellence. So that's curious that he's bringing this up. Which would also be a clue to this reading. If he is describing all this stuff and he is saying what we have to do is participate in excellence, be like Socrates does. When Socrates is given options, he takes the highest. Like with Parmenides. Parmenides said, I'll teach you how to do the dialectic. Socrates asked for an example, not on beauty, but on the self. He went for the highest. Seek excellence, participate in excellence. Which means in this section, if he's describing a lot of stuff, pick the highest one. Aim for that. That would be aiming for excellence. Don't be like, okay, how can I avoid cocytus or avoid periphygeton and Tartarus? How can I just go to the Aracusian wetlands? No, that's not excellence. Aim for the top surface of the earth. So, do your work here, which is what? Purify yourself by philosophy. So you can go to the highest part of the description, the pure habitation. So you are without a body from now on. That sounds like fun. Especially if you have aching joints. So how do we do it? Gone through in detail, making every effort. So to participate in excellence. So, what is this word excellence? Let's make it our own, because it seems to be coming at the end of a big list of things. It seems to be a key term. We have to put every effort into doing it. So what is it? Participate in excellence is the word in Greek. Aretis. A-R-E-T-I-S. Aretis. Aretis. Aretis means arete is where it comes from. I know that. Arete. Arete. A genitive singular form of arete. Excellence. Yeah. Sometimes called virtues. Excellence. Excellence and virtues are tied together, which is interesting. So the virtues. The virtues, you could say, are the kind of excellences of the parts of your soul. And of course, having them all gives the higher, greater level of whole, or the greater dimension, the virtue of justice. Excellence of the self, to be always doing the art of the logos. Both publicly and privately, as mentioned in the Republic. But we'll get into the Republic next time. Next series. So participate in excellence. So let's find this arete and see if it comes up anywhere else in the text. Okay, it's come up in the right exchange for virtue. Okay, it was used to mean virtue. Interesting. So the right exchange for virtue is not exchanging pleasures for pleasures, pains for pains. You master one pleasure to master another. The only currency that all of the virtues or excellences is to be exchanged for mindfulness. It's the only valid currency. It's the gold coin. So all this work in our developing excellence is for phronesis. 62. The soul is said to possess intellect and virtue and to be good, or if it's unenlightened, wicked and vicious. Right, okay, this was the argument about soul being harmony. It can't be harmony because there is an excellence or virtue and there's a kakun or badness. So the soul can't be harmony if harmony means virtue, because harmony can't be disharmony. And if virtue is harmony, then vice or badness is disharmony. So harmony can't be disharmony, there'd be no such thing as vice. So it can't be that. Which is interesting because we are finding a way of harmonizing the souls in the inner earth. Can we live in harmony? Can we live without murdering each other? And on this planet, we could say, well, that's kind of where we are. We are still yet to learn the art of the logos. Socrates helped us out. He was sent, as he said in the apology, sent from God to help us. We dropped the ball, but now we can pick it up. We can stop our murdering and living disharmony as a race if we pick up this. So as above, so below. So in this world, the true earth, we call out to the people in the Aracasian fields, can we live harmoniously, please? And of course, this could all be within our soul. So virtue as harmony. Other time it was mentioned was here. Same thing. Okay, so it was mentioned with reference to the excellences of the soul. It was mentioned with, excellence was also mentioned, you exchange the virtues for phronesis, and those were the two other times that the word excellence was mentioned. Interesting. So, we have to participate in excellence with every effort, in detail. And phronesis. There's our phronesis. That's been coming up all the way through. During your life, for the prize is beautiful and the hope is great. Hooray! So, go through every detail. Go through in detail and make every effort to participate in excellence, otherwise known as the virtues. And phronesis, trade them virtues in for phronesis. If you do, which would of course, both of which is the practice and integration of the art of the logos, our dianoia, our paideia, education. For the prize is beautiful and the hope is great. Hooray! This is the prize and where we're hoping to be. Thus, it is not proper for a person who participates of intellect, is our news, to insist that these matters have to literally be in this way, just as I described them. But this appears to me to be proper and worthy to risk the belief that it has to be in this way. Interesting. Someone who has intellect is saying this isn't literal. So there probably isn't, maybe there isn't boiling rivers, but something like it. But they are proper and worthy to risk the belief that it has to be in this way, for the risk is a noble one. Interesting. So these things is a kind of risk. If the right lover of learning, philomathesis, is to have this trust and belief and repeat it, that's a kind of risk. Maybe Socrates is off the ball. Maybe this isn't true. Maybe we can't experience it for ourselves in noesis and noesis and phronesis. The risk is a noble one. That's good to know. That neither this or something like this is certain. That either something like this. So I think there might be some metaphors in here. It's like this. So maybe that's because we are using furniture or metaphors that we can see in our physical senses to metaphorically relate to describe things that have a non-physical kind of existence. So it might not be a boiling river per se, but kind of like it. This habitation on the actual surface of the earth might not actually look like the way that the surface of the earth looks like here, and the underground passages might look like here. We don't really have a lot of underground passages. Maybe there are channels of lava beneath the surface of earth. It's not exactly the same, but like it. So this or something like this is certainly the case about our souls. Certainly the case. So he's saying, hey, tie it together. Look for analogies. Let the particulars fall away and the meaning rise to the surface. Is the case about our souls. And their habitations. Seeing that the soul is evidently immortal. So we've sufficiently proven this, and Socrates has of course experienced it. We have to experience it. That's needed for our virtues to come into phronesis. That's our transition from trust to dianoia to having wings on our souls, sticking our head above the water, having noesis or nous, as mentioned just here. It is necessarily and benefiting to sing such myths to ourselves, just as they were an incarnation. So this is pulling back, singing. So let's find where else have we been talking about singing myths. Let's find it. This is reading, weaving it together. We mentioned singing. No, not that one. Let's type in sing. Okay, singing. Okay, singing. Okay. Sing. Sing is also at the end of lots of words. So let's find sing. Here we go. This is when we mentioned singing. Oh no, that's where we are now. Single path, possessing. Increasing. Opposing. Imposing. Sing. Here we go. So the swans sing more and more pleasantly when they are about to depart to the god whose servants they are, the god of Apollo. They have foreknowledge, and they sing and rejoice on the day that they are about to pass on to where they are headed, into the next world. Okay, so this is Socrates said, I am like the swans. I am also singing my greatest song here by this, what we're reading. This is his greatest song before he dies. His swan song, we might call it. Okay, and here's another sing. Okay, excuse me. So, assuming we have a fear of death, that our soul dissolves and is scattered like into the wind. Imagine that is a childhood fear of death, says CB's laughing. CB says, Now persuade this inner child not to fear death, as if the fear of death was a boogeyman. Socrates says it is necessary to sing to self every day until you sing away them away. Sing away what? Our fears of death from our childhood. Where shall we find a good singer of such particulars? When you leave us. Hey, this is a big country, Seabees. There are good people, but also non-Hellenic races that have a lot of people. So thoroughly search for a singer. Spare no expense. Give them your money. Or toil. Because there's nothing you should necessarily spend your money more on than to sing away your fears of death. Purify your false beliefs about death. Maybe we can add to that also someone who can sing this song. The truth about death. So he's saying, spend your money on these. But by the way, look amongst yourselves, because you're probably not going to find anyone better than yourselves qualified to sing these kinds of songs. So this is where he mentioned singing before. We weave that in together. That's where we are now. And so he's giving us an example of the kind of songs that would purify our souls from our childhood fears of death, that our souls are scattered. It ain't going to be scattered. You're going to go somewhere like this, somewhere like this. So, the soul is immortal, evidently, and necessarily benefiting to sing such myths to ourselves as if there were an incarnation. So this was, so we've sung the songs that purify our false beliefs, our fears of death, and our false beliefs of the soul. We're also going to benefit by singing myths about the afterworld. And they are a kind of incarnation. What the heck does this mean? So let's look up what incarnation means. Let's see if it's anything. Let's see if looking up this word gives us any extra insight. Epadin. What does epadin mean? Okay, it's not there. Let's try a lexicon, which works 20% of the time. Epadin. Nope, not working today. What do you know? Okay, so let's try epadin. Let's try a similar word. Here we go. Not that one. Epadin. Right, I can't find it. My lexicon doesn't load sometimes. That's okay. As if they were in, let's stick with the translator here, incarnation. And surely then, I mean, it fits. Surely then, on which account I at least have just now been prolonging the tale. He's been prolonging the tale, making it a long song. Because it's a myth, but it's like myths have a likeness. This whole book is a kind of myth. It's a likeness of what we go through to become like Socrates, to become a lover of learning, to seek the higher causes, become a lover of wisdom, learn about the art of the logos, experience it, see this world, and then come back and sing songs about it, mythologize it. Sing such myths as though they were incarnation. This is why I have been prolonging the tale. Surely then. Surely then, For the sake of those matters, it is necessarily benefiting for braves to be of good cheer. So hey, sing these songs. Risk the belief in it. Risk the trust in it. Risk the dianoia and nous of it. But be brave and be of good cheer. This is where you're heading. Socrates ain't lying to you, but risk the belief and maybe do the work of unpacking it. So, benefiting for braves to be of good cheer. Be brave and be of good cheer. In regards to the soul of themselves. For whosoever in life ignores other pleasures and forbids adornments concerned with the body as being unlike one's own, don't get wrapped up in the physical pleasures. Master the art of the logos. Sing songs about this. Don't get wrapped up in fancy clothes. Adorns concerned with the body. Looking all fancy. Spending your money on that. Because that's unlike one's own. So ignoring pleasures. Other pleasures. There is a great pleasure in experiencing this, of course. Higher dimension of pleasure, I would say. Forbids the adornments of the body as unlike one's own, and are more likely to lead than something other than good. So if you get wrapped up in fashion and clothes, it's likely to lead to something other than what's good. But if you have seriously concerned with the pleasures of learning, so here is a different kind of pleasure, because this is fun. It's a different kind of fun because, like, I find philosophy pleasurable. There are some philosophers on YouTube I like. There are some people who like learning. Like I like some video game and film critic podcasts. They are lovers of learning. Some mainstream philosophers. Sometimes they can reason, well, that can be pleasant. But this is different. This isn't about opinions. Literally saying this is not about opinions. It's unopinable. It's beyond belief. So it's a different kind of enjoyment from this than listening to clever opinions. And also it's a different kind of pleasure because it's genuinely meaningful. Like, we are gonna die, and there is an understandability to the world. Anybody who's learned anything realizes this. So hearing, like, there are some political YouTube channels I like, which have a kind of pleasure, but this is different again, because I like that they're speaking truth to power and they're adding reason to what's normally portrayed in the media by capitalist propagandists as ununderstandable. I like that they add understanding, but they kind of run around a little bit with their head chopped off, only because they lack the paradigm and the art of the logos to actually say, oh no, this is why. They're not actually conservatives, they're just bound together by their pathologos. And they're not really progressives, because to progress means to develop the soul through purification of your illness, and perfection of the art of the logos. So the apathy or frustration or disdain that everyone feels on both sides is because no one's got the art of the logos. So they don't really get to the point, they don't get really to the cause, and they can't offer a solution. Getting to the cause is needed in an art, you diagnose. Offering a solution is also needed in an art, that's prescription or the remedy. And because they don't have an art of the soul, they can't recognize it politically or spiritually for philosophers. So while it is pleasurable to listen to, sane people or good people as human beings react to political events, or human beings, philosophers, talk about interesting or meaningful topics, this is a different kind of thing because it's not about just human, it's about what is beyond human. It's not about opinions, it's about truth, the most human. It's about true rationality and actually understanding the cause of things and actually solving them and actually finding the meaning of life, not speculating for clicks or speculating to be a Philo Nikos, to love debate. So it's pleasurable in a different sense. It's not, from my own personal experience, the pleasures of those are kind of like, oh, this is the best thing to listen to compared to the other pleasures and pains of the world. This is different. This is out of the world, out of this world, in a positive sense. It's a kind of, like we're talking about in the chat today, anxiety. It kind of puts to peace the anxiety because if you are at the whims of the back and forth of pleasures and pains and justice and injustice in the physical world, it's sane to be anxious, to have fear, because you don't know what's going to happen. And we live in a barbarian world. We haven't yet evolved to this level. Hopefully very, very, very soon we can. And as such, the people in charge are just playing out their ignorance, their pathologos, injustice, suffering, exploitation, capitalism, tyranny, these sort of objectively terrible things that almost everyone can see as bad, but is somehow tolerated in a way that we would not tolerate it from a doctor or an architect. But this pleasure, this thing is out of this world. It's not the back and forth of pleasures and pains. So it's a different kind of pleasure. That's different because it's A, not to do with popular opinion. B, not to do with the whims of the populace or the political climate or where we are in terms of how late stage capitalism. It's not to do with the level of ignorance of others. It's just about our own soul and how far we can reach towards truth for ourselves. And hey, he's saying it's only for your incarnation. Most people are going to go to the Arachisian fields. Some are going to go through Cocytus or Periphlegyethan. Probably going to be very rare few who are going to get to the true earth. That's you. So hey, you're probably not going to save everyone. So you're going to be pulling your hair out pointlessly, trying to solve the problems as they play out within the physical world. Yeah, there are some cool catchphrases that you can find in philosophy. If it's worth saying many times is a good one to do with how do we learn. Right here we can see some. Participate in excellence and phronesis in your life, for the prize is beautiful and the hope is great. Risk the belief. You can find, actually that can be a fun activity. In the chat, someone's saying, hey, can I find catchphrases, one-liners? I'm sure you can find great ones in here. So here we are. Ignore the other pleasures, forbid the adornments of the body as unlike yourself and not leading to the good, and seriously concern yourself with the pleasures of learning. So yeah, the pleasure of this takes you out of the pleasure and pain back and forth, takes you out of that fear and anxiety. It's literally something, doesn't matter what happens to you in life. In another one of the Platonic texts, Socrates says, hey, if you're really sick, don't spend all your time here trying to, keep yourself alive by managing your body and having all this medicine and stuff, spending all your time and money on that. Just spend whatever time and money you have here doing this, mastering philosophy, learning and mastering the art of the logos. Because you're going to come back around anyway, so don't worry about it. Hard for us when we've forgotten the eternal nature of our soul. But actually, the art of the logos is literally remembering. It's remembering. No, we don't read Aristotle. Aristotle is materialist. He drops the ball. He doesn't pick up the logos. It's a counterattack to the logos. It's interesting to find, once you know the paradigm, someone in the chat said, do we read Aristotle? When we understand the paradigm, we can diagnose Aristotle, why he dropped the ball, why he left Plato's academy, why his way of thinking follows to materialism and the anti-logos. But it's important to know the paradigm first from Socrates before we can judge how and why Aristotle missed the mark. But it's important too, because he is one of those causal links as to why we went down our road of destruction. But nevertheless, back on this one, the kind of pleasures of learning. Non-physical, of a higher order, can take with you beyond this lifetime. It's a kind of enjoyment that you can enjoy even out of the body. Interesting, because the concern with the physical, who are you talking to, Nitro? Me? The concerns with the physical pleasures are, of course, in the body. So if our job is to become ensouled and leave the body, then yeah, we're learning lots today. Welcome to the chat. We're learning about the nature of reincarnation and what we should be doing in life. So yeah, we're learning about the meaning of life. Kind of fun. And also the pleasure of this kind of learning. Pleasures of learning. Doesn't matter who knocks you down. Doesn't matter who distracts you. Doesn't matter what happens in this world. So, and in that other text, he said, doesn't matter if you're ill or you have problems that make it difficult. Just do your best to enjoy the love of learning, because it's only our mastery of the art of the logos and our application of that, our phronesis. It's only our excellence and phronesis that we take with us. And if we do, the prize is beautiful and the hope is great. Risk this as a belief. Don't get wrapped up in physical pleasures. Don't get wrapped up in fashion and clothing and stuff. That's not you, and it won't lead to the real good. Be seriously concerned with the pleasure of learning, the kind of pleasure that I get from this, that I hope you get from this. That's different from other channels, really anything else in this world. It's not the same sort of pleasure. It's a different one. It's a higher order pleasure. It's one that's more familiar. It lasts longer. It's it sings the songs that sing away our childhood fears of death and fear of the soul dissipating. The boogeyman, we called it. But also it sings this other song of which is a kind of incarnation. Sing such myths about the nature of our incarnation and rebirth, and how we can go beyond that to be always without a body upon the pure habitation of the earth. And there are even more things to be seen there. Even when we escape that and meet the fellow guides and travelers, there are even more beautiful habitations that we are following our guides and fellow travelers to.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So this is the pleasure of learning that you can take us, that we hold on to through the ups and downs, the pleasures, the pains of our physical body. That's the virtue of courage. Desiring this pleasure, that's the virtue of temperance. Using it, thinking about it at all times, that's the virtue of wisdom. Using it as your guide or paradigm in everything you do, that's the virtue of justice. All of those come together towards when you can actually experience this non-physical realm, phronesis. That's the currency you trade all that in for. So risk it. Risk the belief. Risk playing the game. Risk doing the work. Well, playing the game is better. Finding the key terms, finding the orders, finding the sulfur terms, discovering questions, creating hypothesis, mythologizing it, singing about it, putting it together into the dialectic, most important one. Seek excellence. Reflect on yourself. Apply all this to yourself. Risk it. Risk it. Risk the belief. Risk the game. Risk gaining dianoia. Risk enjoying this kind of pleasure, different from food or drink or physical pleasures. And risk experiencing it, sticking your head above the water like the fish. Notice, it is a kind of belief to start off with. That's learning. You don't know yet. You have to repeat it. And then Socrates said, hey, we are like where's our fishy? We're like a fishy or a sea dweller. We've never lifted our head out of the sea to behold sight of the surface. We've never even heard about it from someone who's seen it. That's right. And now we have. Lucky for us. Lucky for us, Socrates said it. Lucky for us, it was recorded. And lucky for us, 2,500 years later, we have the actual translation without the misinterpretation, the reinterpretation, the problems of the translator, and with the actual Greek. So, ignore the other things. Don't get wrapped up in physical fashion. That's not yourself. That won't lead to the good. Be seriously concerned with the pleasure of learning and adorn their soul not with alien, but with the adornments of self. So what do we wear? Sound-mindedness. Justice. Our translator says righteousness, but the word is justice. Virility. The power of courage. Freedom. What? Those who have lived in a supremely pious way, they are given freedom and liberated as if from prisons. So liberation from the reincarnation as we are liberated from our physical body when we do this. Sound-mindedness, okay? This is our desiring it. Courage. Holding on to this as true, not the other pleasures and pains. Virility. Justice, doing it all times. Freedom and truth. These are the things to adorn yourself with. Sound-mindedness, temperance. Right justice. Courage and power, virility. Be virile in it. Freedom and truth. And in this way, await your journey into the invisible realm of Hades. Do this as you wait. As he said earlier, we have to wait until the divine self. Okay, divine. Here we go. Purify yourself. Okay, how do we do it? Through dianoia. So those who most accurately dianoia, so dianoia, accurately, dialectic, they will approach closest to noesis, the knowledge of the beings. That's a purification. That's a liberation. This is what's needed to hit phronesis. If you get wrapped up in the body, that causes your problems, war, civil discord, battles. We want to purify through dianoia, dialectic. That leads to noesis. This is purifying ourselves from the body and the physical world and our physical senses and physical clothes and physical pleasures until the divine self should liberate us. Being liberated of the phronesis of the body. This, by the way, repeating all that to each other and believing it, risking the belief in it, that's the right learning. That's philomathesis. That's the first step. Risk the belief. Repeat it over and over and over and over, as though you're singing every day, singing away your fears, like the childhood fears of the boogeyman, and singing an incarnation for the soul. He's already said this in page 16 and 17. Until the divine self should liberate us. So all the way down at the end of the text. So we weave that together with what we're saying right at the end. All the way down. Woof. Okay? Don't ignore the pleasures of the body and the adornments of the body. Instead, adorn yourself with the virtues, including freedom, including truth. There's our noesis and phronesis. And in this way, singing these songs as if they were, so risking the belief and singing these songs as if, so risking the belief, true learning, singing these songs as if they're incantations, adorning yourself with the virtues and with being just, desiring the art of the logos, holding on to it with courage and power and force, being virile, what it really means to be alpha. Hold on to this as you go through life in the challenges and difficulties. Do this at all times. Gives you a freedom. Take that freedom. Maintain that state of freedom with the logos. Truth. Experience it. That's the being. That's noesis. Do these things. Sing in this way. Practice these things. In this way, await your journey to the invisible realm of Hades, in being or in your next life, by being prepared to go when their allotted destiny. So we escape fate to find destiny. So that's our prepared, being prepared to go when their allotted destiny summons. As we said earlier, prepare dianoia through the dialectic, and the virtues virtues are just doing it always. Which is, so the way of doing the virtues or harmonizing yourself to one task, have pleasure in it. Enjoy this pleasure. This is what we do. This is what we sing. This is what we focus and enjoy. This is a preparation until the divine self or our allotted destiny summons us to that realm. When we're alive or after we've been buried. Either or both. Then you on the one hand, good, you will, nice. In the chat, they're going to do it. If you do this, Simius and Cebes, and the rest of you, that means you in chat, and you watching on YouTube. If you do this, Simius and Cebes, and the rest of you, 2,500 years later, watching this on YouTube, you will take that journey at some time afterwards. You will each take that journey. And my allotted destiny summons me now. If you do this, your destiny will summon you. The divine self will liberate you. As I am doing now. Join me, follow me. As he said at the beginning, the first thing Socrates says was, hey, take self home. The second thing he says is, pleasure and pain of the physical world are united with a head beyond the physical world. So here's our pleasure of learning. Third thing he said is, tell Euvenos to follow me as quickly as he can. If he's doing philosophy properly, he'll want to. So if you do this, seriously, what is it? Don't get wrapped up in physical pleasures or adornments of the body, because that's not really you. It's not the real you. Instead, be seriously concerned with the pleasure of this learning, as we do with this podcast every day. Adorn your soul with not alien things, but with the adornments of self. Sound-mindedness, desiring the art of the logos, the art of the logos. Right, justice, using it as your paradigm in everything you do. Virility, giving yourself a power by holding onto it with courage. Freedom, freeing yourself from all of your ills, as though freeing yourself from chains of the body and your problems. And truth, experiencing it and understanding it. In this way, do this while you await your journey when destiny summons. So there's probably an allotted time for you. There's a reason you're here. And if it's being watched from outside of time and space, It's probably a destiny. Escape your fate, your problems to reach your destiny. That's the preparation. That's what we should be doing. That's what we should be singing every day to self. As though freeing ourselves from boogeymen and creating an incarnation. Just as my allotted destiny summons me now. As a tragic poet might say, and so it is nearly the hour for me to turn towards my bath, as it truly seems better to be already bathed. So again, metaphor. Purified, cleaned, clear, than to drink the potion, which is summoned to his destiny, that the women may not have the trouble of washing the corpse. Phaedo, our narrator. Surely then, when self has finished saying these logos, Crito said. Crito, who's also in the room. Very well, O Socrates. What then is your last wish, either to me or to them, about your children or anything else concerning you? Whatever can we do in goodwill that we would serve you the most? So this is the end of his speech. What's he going to say after it? There's our cliffhanger for the next episode. But he's just laid down a lot. We've spent a lot of work, revision, and time and effort, purifying and perfecting, singing to our soul in this way, adorning ourselves in the pleasure of learning. And this activity, if we're doing it, we are practicing the virtues because they're all tied to this. So we have been preparing ourselves, bathing our souls, preparing for our destiny for a long time, and this is the end of it. It's very similar. It's like this story about what happens in our incarnations, and that if we do philosophy sufficiently, we are purifying ourselves. So if we seek the Logos all times, live a life of the art of the Logos, adorn it, enjoy the freedom it offers you, enjoy the pleasure it has, all times, all times, all times, all times, then that's risk it. That's proper and worthy to risk this. It's a noble risk. This is certainly the case of our souls. It's something like, it's something, this is, it's not literal, but it's this or something very close to this. Our soul is immortal. We've already seen that. Okay, we probably have to go back and create our own dialect on why it's indestructible, because it was evidently shown to be immortal, but the second part of that argument is left for us, giving us some work to do. It's befitting to sing myths to ourselves, be brave, be of good cheer, ignore the pleasures and the adornments of the body, but enjoy the pleasures of learning and adorn yourself with the virtues. That's preparing yourself until you are called through your allotted destiny. You've got a guide, a daemon keeping you on track. He is dropping some real help, guidance, artfulness, wisdom, truth. He is being a really, really good person, friend, companion, fellow traveler.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
So we've got the last things of Socrates. He's really, really helping us out. So we've got something to practice, to enjoy, to hold on to try out, to share with our friends. It's not a solo game. So, interesting stuff. He might have something more to say at the end. Don't know. There's our cliffhanger. I hope you've got something to wonder about and to try, to challenge yourself with. It's going to be different than the many, than your upbringing. But that's why we're here, to learn and prepare ourselves. We have a way, a simple way. Let's bring this all together. What is it? The dianoia of the art of the Logos. That's what we do. That's what we do at all times. That's what can unify the virtues. That's the pleasure of learning. That's all of it. And that's our preparation. Understand the art of the Logos. Dianoia id. Always. Until when? The divine self or our allotted destiny summons us. So, and by the way, if you're watching this and you are summoned in such a way, when you come back, please share it with us. Share your experiences, share what you understood, share what helped you to stay focused on this and enjoy it and adorn yourself in this way. Because we're fellow travelers. Share your insights, share your experiences, share the art. On that note, I hope to see you next time. Thank you for joining me in chat. I stream this live on YouTube and Twitch now. The link should be below. You can find the text for free and the link below. You can join on Discord to share them experiences. If you're summoned, please help the rest of us. Share your experiences, share your insights. If you have the means, feel free to. We'll greatly appreciate it if you can support on Patreon. And I hope to see you all next time. Enjoy the pleasure of this kind of greatest, most excellent learning, which we can also call making every effort to participate in excellence. I'll see you next time.